Faculty of Graduate Studies on behalf of University of Moratuwa is very, very happy to initiate an event, the inaugural lecture series of those professors who are joining to the ranks of professor to the University of Moratuwa. We starting from this year's January 2021, and it's indeed happy to start the inaugural lecture by Professor Udeni Nawagamuwa today.
This is of course a new departure for the University of Moratuwa, for which we must be thankful to the new Dean of the Faculty of Graduate Studies. But an inaugural lecture is a very old academic tradition. In 1669, Professor Issac Newton was appointed to the Lucasian Professor of Mathematics at Trinity College in Cambridge, and he spoke on the topic of colors. Now, Newton of course is known very well for his theories of mechanics and gravitation, but we also know from the time we spent in school that he also did work on optics and colors. Over 300 years later, Professor Stephen Hawking was appointed to the same Lucasian chair of mathematics at Trinity College, and he spoke in his inaugural lecture on the topic, "Is the end in sight for theoretical physics?" When we come to engineering, in fact to the very field of soil mechanics on which our new professor is going to speak to us this evening, Alex Kempton was appointed to the chair of soil mechanics at Imperial College in 1955, and he spoke on the topic soil mechanics and its place in the university. And in 2021, Professor Udeni Nawagamuwa will speak on the topic nature-based landslide mitigation, a futuristic approach. So, to have an inaugural lecture, when a university promotes an inaugural lecture, it is standing in the line of a long tradition.
It is with great pleasure that I introduce my younger colleague and former student, Professor Udeni P. Nawagamuwa, delivering this inaugural lecture upon the appointment to the grade of professor. I am very happy that Udeni got the opportunity to inaugurate this lecture series at the University of Moratuwa. Udeni Nawagamuwa graduated from University of Moratuwa with an honours degree in civil engineering in 1999. He completed his master's degree at AIT in 2002 and PhD at Yokohama National University, Japan in 2005. He became a member of the ISL in January 2008 and currently a fellow. A research paper he submitted based on his final year research project won the competition organized by the Sri Lankan Geotechnical Society for the young engineers, that is those who are under 35 years of age. There was stiff competition, and he won the competition and got the opportunity to represent Sri Lanka in the first International Young Geotechnical Engineers Conference organized by the International Society of Soil Mechanics and Geotechnical Engineering, held at Southampton University in the year 2000. He is a very valuable member of the civil engineering family and an example to all our younger colleagues. As the head of the department, I am highly privileged to have the services of a number of young colleagues like him in the department who are intelligent, dedicated and committed. Knowing that they are around to take the institution to greater heights, we can retire happily in few years. I wish him well and look forward to hear about greater achievements in the future. So today he will be speaking about the nature-based landslide mitigation, a futuristic approach, something very applicable to Sri Lanka. Thank you, and it is over to you, President Agan.
Thank you, sir. In fact, when the organizers asked me who is the best person to introduce myself, I said it is none other than Professor Atula Kulatulaka. He was my supervisor and mentor. Thank you very much, sir. Good evening, everybody. Vice Chancellor, sir, Deputy Vice Chancellor, sir, the Deans, my colleagues and friends. It is a great privilege and honor to me to be invited to deliver this inaugural lecture or the professorial lecture. And I know at the same time It's a huge responsibility, and I hope that I will do the justice. I will be talking today on this topic, nature-based landslide mitigation, a futuristic approach. So this is a multidisciplinary research that I want to highlight before starting my lecture, because when I invited some of my friends, those who are not engineers, they said, it is really boring to listen to engineering lectures. I said, no, this is a multidisciplinary, you can listen and evaluate after that. Okay, then I welcome you all for my lecture. This professorial lecture is dedicated to all my teachers, including parents, my first teachers. I quote Mahatma Gandhi. He said, every home is a university and the parents are the teachers, unquote. My research life started with my undergraduate research with Professor Atulapulatillaka. It was about the study of the behavior of anchored tire earth retaining structures in 1998 and 1999 time. And then I did my master's at AIT Thailand. My MINT research was the cavity expansion analysis on corn penetration resistance of sand compaction piles. That was on about ground improvement. I did it in 2000-2002 period. And then I started my PhD, Doctor of Engineering at Yokohama National University in Japan. That was on studying the effects of influential factors on the consolidation of with vertical drains with the late Professor Goro Imai in 2002-2005 period. And then I had 2 sabbatical vacations at Vanderbilt University with Professor George Hornberger, and at University of Wollongong with distinguished Professor Buddhimendratna in 2017-18. And as Professor Kulatilaka already introduced me with my research interest, so those are the research interests that I have: earth retaining structures, ground improvement techniques, use of waste in the geo-construction work, and geo-environmental engineering, development of fast and bouncy cricket pitches, landslide studies, and recently with this railway geotechs. And I will just take you to this slide. This was about the Meria-Bedda landslide some time back. So it is evident that Sri Lanka has become the hotspot for landslide in the South Asian region. So this is not the end of this landslide issues in this country. You know, after that we had Aranayaka. We had some more, but we have to see what we have done, right? So that's what I thought of talking today with this new topic, this nature-based landslide mitigation. The content I am going to cover today will be on the landslides, what is landslides and the different types of landslides, the mitigation measures, the background of the nature-based landslide mitigation methods, the experience that we can get from other countries, the Sri Lankan experience, what we have done in Sri Lanka, and then the opportunities for further studies or future studies and the publications I have done in these subjects and the acknowledgement. What is a landslide? I am quoting from this USGS definition. They say a landslide is defined as the movement of mass of rock or debris or earth down a slope. Landslides are type of mass wasting, which denotes any downslope movement of soil and rock under the direct influence of gravity, right? The key word is the direct influence of gravity. And there are different types of landslides, or different factors are there for creating landslides. So landslides can be initiated in slopes already on the verge of movement by rainfall. In Sri Lanka we call rainfall is the triggering factor. Snow melt in some countries, changes in water level, stream erosion, changes in groundwater, earthquakes, volcanic activities in some parts of the world, and also because of the disturbance by human activities or any combination of these factors. And I would like to show you few types of landslides that you can see. There are different types of landslides that you can see. If you want to categorize them, you can see rotational, different types of slides like up to creep. The last one is creep, the rock falls, the translational. There are different types of landslides you can see. It's because of their behavior, because of their movement, that you can see the type of landslide and real examples that you can see in the nature or the field. And why do we have to study landslides? Now we know our civilization started in the north central province of the flat land, relatively flat land. And because of some safety reasons, we moved to the highlands or the hill country. So as people move into new areas of hilly or mountainous terrain, it is important to understand that the nature of their potential exposure to landslide hazards and how cities, towns can plan for land use engineering of new construction and infrastructure, which will reduce the cost of living with landslides. Although the physical causes of many landslides cannot be removed, geologic investigation, good engineering practices and effective enforcement of land use management regulations can reduce the landslide hazards. It is also important to understand the science of landslides, their causes, movement characteristics, soil properties, the geology associated with them, and where they are likely to occur. And then next question is, do human activities cause landslides? Yes. In some cases, human activities can be a contributing factor for landslides. Many human caused landslides can be avoided or mitigated, that is, we are responsible for that. They are commonly because of a result of building roads and structures without adequate grading of slopes, poorly planned alteration of drainage patterns, or disturbing all landslides or previous landslides. Then FEMA explained how to identify warning signs of landslides. There are changes in the landscape, there can be new cracks in the buildings, the outside parts of the buildings can be moving, that you can see those things, and slowly developing cracks in the ground, and the bulging of the toe area, then water breaks in some new locations, fence, retaining walls or posts are tilting, or there may be a faint rumbling sound near to the landslide. When landslide nears that, there will be a lot of sounds like that. So there are warning signs when you say that there are landslides that is going to happen. And then the triggering factors that could cause landslide or causative factors. We have two processes that we have to understand here. One is some factors will decrease the shear strength or the strength of the soil. Some factors will drive the or increase the stress or the shear stress. So there are two factors here we have to consider: the decreasing in the shear strength, that may be due to rainfall or may be due to some construction activities like pile driving or due to some cyclic loading. And the increase in the driving shear stress may be due to erosion or may be due to surcharging at the top or may be rapid drawdown in reservoirs or due to some rock falling. And I am introducing this one, or I am just taking this one as a landslide hazard zonation mapping into this my presentation, because this is very important, right? So National Building Research Organization has initiated this project for some time now. So they have maps available as 1:50,000 and 1:10,000. These are available for landslide hazard areas, and now they are moving to 1:10,000 maps. 1:10,000 maps are very important, because if you just look at this 1:50,000 map, the 1 millimeter has a large area. Oh, 10 millimeter is quite large area. So, but it may represent a wrong information in the map. So because of that, they are now moving to 1:10,000 maps. So these maps are developed after an extensive field studies, evaluation of the site and the other information. So they have 6 causative factor attributes such as geology, slope, soil overburden, hydrology, landform, and the land use patterns in the area. If you see this one, that these are very important maps, right? So the green color shows the very less likely landslide areas, and the dark red areas are high potential areas for landslides. And if you talk about the mitigation measures, there are different classifications for mitigation measures. one is called active and passive measures. These active and passive measures, stabilization measures, in relation to whether the mitigation measures actively pursue an improvement of the stability of the slope, or they passively intercept or run out when movement occurs. So then we have hard and soft stabilization measures. Hard is normally used to describe structural techniques that are visually obvious. We call engineering measures like hard retaining structures like this. And also we have soft mitigation measures that is normally used to describe techniques that are visually less intrusive and which improve the strength of the properties of soils. And also we have two other classifications. One is called preventive, the other one is remedial. These stabilization measures relate into the relevance to different stages of the movement. If you just see the different types of landslide hazard mitigation measures, we can see the surface protection controls or control of surface erosion, and then we can modify the geometry of the slope or the surface, and then modify the surface water regime. We can introduce surface drainage, and also we have to modify the groundwater regime. We can reduce the water table by pumping out water at deep drainage, and also we can modify the mechanical characteristics of the unstable mass by introducing anchors, and also we can transfer the load to more competent strata, and also we can introduce some fences like boulder rock catching nets. And then I am moving to the topic, the nature-based solutions. Now you know about the background of the landslides and also the different mitigation measures. In these nature-based solutions, what we talk about the interventions which make use of natural processes and ecosystem services to address the hazards such as floods, erosion and landslides. I am particularly talking about the landslides. And this can be completely green, and also it means totally consist of ecosystem elements, so that can be hybrid combination of ecosystem elements and the conventional engineering measures. And also the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction introduce this as an effective and sustainable technique to reduce the disaster risk. I am taking this example from Hong Kong. We consider as geotechnical professionals in the world, the Hong Kong has the best manuals, the guidelines and the procedure against the landslide disasters. Until 1977, they observed their landslide risk was increasing. But in 1977, they introduced different mechanisms, different structures and different ways of handling that. And because of these engineering measures, their landslide risks reduced. And in 2010, they again realized already constructed structures are now deteriorating or degrading. So now this is a time that we have to think of new phase. That phase is introducing vegetation into this existing structure. So that was the one they did in 2010. Now I will show some things that they have done. So they have developed guidelines for planting on slopes. So for different soil slope angles, they introduce different plant types. So but we have to see the soil type as well. But here we can simply say, because of the different angles, they have developed this kind of simple guideline that everybody can follow this. Anybody can follow this. And then they introduce these concepts like all are existing structures, but they introduce different landscape layout plans. The vertical creepers, they introduce places for plants, and they introduce toe supports with vegetation, and also they introduce these flexible barriers using plants. So then these flexible barriers will protect the road structures or the infrastructure because they can block all these rock falls and other movements of mass due to landslides. And this is kind of a schematic diagram for integrating green nature-based solutions into our system. So if you have this landslide mapping, and then we can see whether with this other information whether we are going to resettle these people. That is one of the options we have. If we are going to resettle the people, of course we can do. But if you are going to live with the landslides, we have options. So that's what I am going to talk, that we can live with the landslides. So then we have to introduce this kind of mitigation measures. So mitigation measures can be green or conventional or hybrid. So that's the one that we can see as nature based. So the green one is nature based. So with this other instrumentation and other informations that you can see in the blue color ones, that we collect the information and then we can go for the solutions. So that is the concept that we present here, that is living with landslides. And IUCN introduced 8 principles of relevance to nature-based solutions. Those are called embrace nature conservation norms and principles, and then can be implemented alone or in an integrated manner with other solutions we call hybrid. Then those are determined by site-specific natural and cultural context that can be produced societal benefits and also maintain biological and cultural diversity, and also apply to landscape scale and recognize and address the trade-offs between the products. So it is economy, and also the most important thing, it is an integral part of the overall design policies and actions. And we have 2 things, as I already told you, this integration of NBS or nature-based solutions in landslide risk mitigation and management. One is living with existing risk with introduction of appropriate measures to reduce landslide risk. Or we can see safer land use planning through the measures for reducing the exposure, having undertaken various interventions including resettlement, right? So that is one option, right? We can introduce resettlement or relocation of vulnerable elements. Vulnerable elements are the infrastructure and even the people. And now we can see the role of plants in improving slope stability and minimize soil erosion. We have 2 basic concepts. One is hydrological advantages, the other one is the mechanical advantages. In the hydrological advantages, the leaves in the plant that can intercept or that can disturb the rainfall and reduce the impact of the ground, right? So because of that, it will reduce the infiltration in the ground. But when you have a lot of trees on the floor in the ground, so that can even again block the surface runoff, and then there can be more infiltration. That is a negative side, right? So they have positive side as well as negative side. So, and also another hydrological impact is that these roots can absorb more water, and then because of the evapotranspiration, they reduce the moisture in the ground. So when they reduce the moisture in the ground, they maintain unsaturated situation, the soil is stronger. And in the other words, in the mechanical aspects, these roots act as anchors. They provide the tensile capacity to the soil, but normally soils are not good in tension, right? So they are tension capacity is 0, right? Tensile capacity is 0, right? So because of that, these roots can provide that capacity to the soil. And also there are some disadvantages in mechanical aspects as well. That is, when you have a strong wind, that can transfer to the soil. So that can be a dynamic force to the soil. So that can be a danger. So there are goods and also bad sides of this vegetation on the stability of the slopes. And I will highlight this benefits of NBS or nature-based again in stabilizing slopes, right? So this plant evapotranspiration mechanism serves as rainfall holders by maintaining the negative pore pressure on the ground, and also soil will maintain an unsaturated mass with less pore pressure, and that will prevent the slope failures. And the higher the density of the canopy and leaf area, the greater the ability to catch rainfall. So if we have higher canopy, that higher density, so that will catch the rainfall, and the interception reduces and delays the rainfalls to the soil surface, and also increase the shear stress transfer to the ground into the tensile resistance in the roots, carries out the mechanical soil response by the roots. And also the tree's roots will increase the soil shear strength, where the tensile strength is its on roots and provide slope shearing resistance during and after heavy rainfall. And then I will talk about the root traits. These are improving soil mechanical properties. So one is when we have roots there, the density of roots crossing the shear plane is very important, and also the branching density throughout the soil profile. The total length of the coarse roots in the shear plane. The shear plane is the assumed or the probable shear failure plane, and also the total volume of the coarse roots and fine roots density below the shear plane. So those are very important when you are calculating the strength. And then I will be talking few words about the site-specific landslide risk assessment. There we have to understand all the elements at risk, maybe houses, buildings, infrastructure facilities, and also the topography of the area, and also the hydrology, that all natural and man-made elements and ecological features and soil formations, and the socio-economic data related to population like to be exposed. Right? So those are the site-specific landslide risk assessment. And then we have to develop a site selection criteria for the application of nature-based solutions. We have to consider few major aspects when you are developing the site selection criteria. One is called the depth to the failure plane. When you take the depth to the failure plane, we have different ranges, and then we have a marking scheme, and also we have different weightages. And then we have the slope angle. Depending on the different slope angle, we will consider we can give marks and also the weightage. And also then we will consider the effect of this suitability of the nature-based application because of their soil thickness, or it may be a rock, or if the soil thickness is not enough, that will create a problem. And also that we can see the sustainability and maintainability. If nobody is there to care of these things, right, so then it will not sustain. So when we are introducing NBS, nature-based solutions, we want to check whether this can be, whether this is sustainable and there is somebody to maintain this. And also the losses or the damages to this, right? So we have to see the real situation on this. Right? Considering all these aspects, we have developed a site selection criteria, we have marks and also the weightages. And then with this, we develop this final score. There we consider the number of criteria, weight assigned to each criteria, and the marks assigned to each criteria. With all these things, we can develop a scale from 0 to 4. If your scale is between 3 and 4, it means you can simply introduce the nature-based landslide mitigation without any problem. If you are in the scale between 2 to 3, you can go towards hybrid, and also it means you have the traditional engineering measures with the nature-based solutions. If your score is less than 2, it means definitely nature-based solutions will not work. You have to go for traditional engineering measures, but you can introduce nature-based mechanics, techniques, that is to control, let's say, erosion and to give some aesthetic appearance, that can be used there in that situation. So this is the way that we derived the best suitable sites. And then when you say the plant selection, that is also another thing that we have to see, how to select plants. So we have some architectural features or structure of a plant root system that play a significant role in shallow slope stabilization and erosion control. And also ecological significance, because in Sri Lanka we have different ecological zones. So then we have to see particularly the plant will be compatible with this surrounding environment. And also the native plant species, because we don't need to provide irrigation, fertilizer, or may demand less trimming. And also we need to understand the mixture of compatible plant species over a single species, because if you just introduce one single species, because of the plant succession that may not survive, right? So we have to think of a mixture of compatible plant species. And also we have to understand the properties of structure above ground as well as the below ground. Both are very important, not only the roots but also the above ground, the plants and the stems, the leaves and the stem. And then if you just look at these two maps, one is our climate zonation in this country, the other one is the landslide hazard map, right? So that you can see those are exactly matching. So because the reason is landslide prone areas of Sri Lanka generally overlap with wet and intermediate zones, because we have in our country those are rain induced landslides. And in the wet zone, the dominant vegetation is tropical evergreen forest with tall trees, broad foliage and a dense undergrowth of vines and creepers. And in subtropical evergreen forest resembling those of temperate climates and flourish in the higher altitudes. And then we have very high mountains. They have montane vegetation at the highest altitudes, tends to be stunted and windswept. And about the root soil matrix, roots are strong in tension, I have already told, but the soils are strong in compression but very weak in tension. Because of this combined effect of soil and roots results in the reinforced soil. It is like reinforced concrete. When shearing the soil, roots mobilize their tensile strength, whereby shear stresses that develop in the soil matrix are transferred to the root fibers via interface friction along the root length. And to assess the increase in the soil shear strength, we have to do some laboratory tensile test, in situ shear test, and some laboratory testing of root soil composites and also modeling the root soil interaction. And then about the strength of plant roots in landslide prone areas. So what we did was, for each selected plant species, approximately we collected 10 undamaged roots with an average diameter between 2 to 50 millimeter. And we collected like 150 millimeter long root samples. We collected them, and then we sometimes we have to do the dry excavation. We collected in packed in a manner that we will not lose the moisture. And then we tested it in this dynamometer, and then we check the tensile capacity, right? So these are some examples that we have done. The photographs resemble these, the collection of samples and also the testing. And then we have to have multi-criteria framework to select suitable plants, suitable species. So we have to see the plant type and structural characteristics, hydrological significance, root strength characteristics, ecological significance and economic value, because if you are introducing this in some areas, they need some income as well. And we developed this method considering 3 zones. One is the top of the slope, the middle of the slope, and also the toe area, right? Because of depending on the root types, we can introduce different plant species. So in the middle of the slope that you see, that we need a longer root types like VH types. In the top of the mountain or top of the slope, that we don't need heavy plants. If you introduce heavy plants, that will cause more damage. But in the bottom or the toe of the slope, that we have to introduce heavy strong plants that will resist the slope movement, right? So that we have to understand these concepts, considering the root types. And then I will take few examples. I am acknowledging here Dr. Anuruddha Karunaratna for helping us in this work. At the beginning also I told that this is a multidisciplinary research, that we got their help. So this is a selected grass type. So this is lemongrass. So there we collected all the information like how it grows, where it grows, what are the soil types, what are the climatic conditions, what is their root type, how it behaves, All these things are collected into a small format like this. So this is for lemongrass and this is for coffee. So this is a small tree. The previous one is grass. This is a small tree, the shrub. So then we can see their features where we can introduce, because depending on the length of the roots or the weight of the tree, that we can select the exact place where to plant that one. And this is a medium sized tree. This is ganduma, and those are medium sized trees. Those are not so heavy, also not so small. And this is a large one. This is the Guinea sapu, right? So these are very, very large trees, right? So they are grown large, and we know their root types, we know their features, like where they are growing, what are the conditions actually they need, and what are the benefits actually the people are getting from this type of trees. We collected all this information. It's a group work, right? So that's why I acknowledge Dr. Anuruddha Karunaratne. And I am moving to the geotechnical assessment. In this geotechnical assessment, now we have collected all these informations, and now we need the materials involved for this assessment. We need the material properties, cohesion, and the internal friction, and the fracture density, and the quality of that available material, degree of weathering of the material, geometry, the surface, the slope angle, weight and the load distribution, water content and the phreatic surface, type of vegetation now we are going to introduce, and also external forces, like if you have any rainfall, earthquakes, whatever other forces must be connected. And in this one, we can see the root reinforced effect. When the soil is moving, the root takes some tension, right? So when it increases the shear strength, the anchoring effect is larger, but there is a limit after that is lost. So that will start the failure, right? The other figure that you can see, that when you have unreinforced soil, there is no cohesion. That apparent cohesion is not there. So when you have a reinforced one, we have an apparent cohesion. That is an advantage, right? So we have two things that we can consider here. One is this additional tension, tensile force, that can be converted as an apparent cohesion. And you can see this schematic diagram of a progressive failure. There you can see just before the failure and when it is moving, what will happen to the root system. Those are gradually failing. But if there is no tree, there is no benefit like this, it will just move. And also you can see the other one, because of the type of the roots, that the shear resistance will be different. So we have to understand the type of roots, and then we know the shear resistance as well. We can understand the shear resistance. So these facts indicate that the spatial distribution of roots would contribute to soil reinforcing more than all the other factors. And also we have to model the hydrological effect. The root water uptake of trees increases the metric suction of adjacent soils due to the reduction in the moisture content, which therefore makes the tree soil metric unsaturated. These unsaturated soil are stronger than a saturated case. Saturated soils will give high pressure, or the soil pore water pressure is there, so that will create the damage. And also we have to consider the humidity, temperature, wind speed, and the soil moisture conditions, and the tree physiology. That those are the environmental factors that will affect the transpiration of the trees. And I will take you to some case studies. So one is this Badulu Sirigama. Badulu Sirigama case is very next to the Uwavellasa University. You can see the Uwavellasa University, the buildings are there, right? So the down of the slope that you can see the village, Badulu Sirigama. So we identified that this has been already moved, and then we did three analyses. One is slope without any mitigation measures. So what is the situation without any modification, and with the Japanese aids that they introduce subsurface drains. So then what is the impact by introducing the subsurface drainage, and then what will happen if we introduce vegetation on top of this. So it is a hybrid solution. So what will be the end result. And then stability assessment without any mitigative measure, that is the case study. Then we have these properties of soils, and then, as you know, some of you can remember the factor of safety, how safe we are. Right? If it is just 1 or less than 1, it is not safe. So this is the situation before introducing any mitigative measures. I would like to acknowledge here one of our master students from NBRO, Lilanka Kankanamge, and also one partner we had from ADPC, Chintaka Ganepola, for helping us in this analysis. And then we had this stability assessment with engineering measures or horizontal drains. There we increased we were able to increase the factor of safety just beyond 1.18 or nearly 1.2. And then we introduced the vegetation. So when we introduce the vegetation to this, we introduce a collovium with vegetation, 1 layer. And with this layer, we had different properties. And with this, if you just look at this one, the factor of safety increases. Factor of safety increases like 1.4, 1.6, like that. So we had a situation where without any improvement, factor of safety was less than 1 or nearly 1. And then when we introduced the drainage improvement, factor of safety was more than 1, it is safe. And then when if we can introduce vegetation, definitely we can improve the factor of safety of the slope. And then we gave a solution to this, because it should be beneficial for everybody, so that we gave a grassland at the top of the land, then the people can use it for their cows. And the middle, that we suggested a botanical garden to the Uva Wellassa University, so they can use for their studies, because Uva Wellassa University has different programs. And then the lower one, that we have a community program, so they can introduce different plants that those are suitable for their income. Right? So this is the one that we introduced for Badulu Sirigam. Similarly, we introduced this concept for some other case studies. One is this Sri Sumangala school in Matale. There they had some failures in their playground. So there we introduced this vegetated gabions as a method that is blending with the environment. Right? You can see in the picture, this is full green area. Right? So we, without just introducing pure gabion, we introduced the vegetated gabion into this area. And then Haggala area, there were a few slides next to this park. So there we introduced a few plants. Those are good against landslides. They can grow in this microenvironment, and also they are helping to maintain the moisture. And then we had this Ayagama case study. There was a landslide in Ayagama, and the standard design was to introduce traditional engineering measures. We wanted to introduce a leisure park by introducing the plants that we have studies in this area. And that leisure park is a kind of a advantage for the people, that they can just go there and stay some time, because they don't have such a place in Nayagama. And then the challenges that we have in this kind of NBS applications or nature-based applications in Sri Lanka for landslide risk management. One is the landslide risk mitigation. When you have the designers, they lack confidence in the use of vegetation for slope stabilization. That is the major problem that we have seen. Sometimes we could not convince the designers. The lack of knowledge about soil bioengineering and landscaping measures to stabilize unstable slopes, that limits the designers in applying such solutions in landslide countermeasures. And also there is a very limited interest in allocating more research for this type of studies, research and capacity building. So of course we know there are capacity gaps, but that we have to study this and then improve this situation. And in my concluding remarks, it's a very simple concluding remark that I want to mention. That is, we all must embrace the nature conservation measures and norms and practices. The nature-based solutions can be done alone or as combined or as hybrid. This must be site-specific. We can't just put one solution to another place. We have to study the case. This is site specific, and whatever we do, it should benefit to everybody, right? Not only the people who design, the people who are living, the nature, the environment. And also this must be an integral part of the policies and the actions. That is the must, right? That is very important. And whatever we do, this must be sustainable and futuristic. I quote from UNEP, when we protect nature, nature protects us. The opportunities for further research studies, so further studies with NBS, that is, I highlight this key word, the multidisciplinary research. We have a lot of opportunities for multidisciplinary research. And also we have to model the evapotranspiration that we could not do in our studies, that I have already, we have sent a proposal to SRC with Dr. Mudita Pallevat and Professor Ajith de Alwis from Mechanical Department. And also we need to do instrumentation in real scale projects and see actually what is happening here. And long-term observations, because the vegetation cannot grow in short time, right? So sometimes it takes 5 years, so 7 years. So we need long-term observations, and we need to apply for different ecological zones. We cannot just do it for one zone and apply the same in another one. And we have to see the behavior of roots in a given climate, given different environment condition. The water table will be different, the moisture content will be different. I learned those things from my colleagues when we are doing this, right? If the water table is well below, roots go up to that level and make that stronger, right? If the water table is very shallow, roots will not grow that stronger. So those are the things that we have to learn. And also we have to maintain plant nurseries. If you are going for this, if you are doing it really, we need to maintain plant nurseries. Otherwise we can't just do this. And we have to update the plant manuals we have made. We have to introduce new plant types. There may be good or better plants than what we have selected. So we have to always have a dynamic system that we have to upgrade these plant manuals. And the publications that I have had on these landslides and nature-based studies, I have to thank all these research students, partners from ADPC, NBRO, all they helped to do this work. And then this, I would like to acknowledge my parents, my mother and the late father. I know he is looking at me from heaven. And then my wife and the kids, they are always helping me, kind of a support that I never get, right? So they always give me this help, right? So sometimes I was away for these field visits for a few days, they never complain. Right? Thank you very much, wife Manjula and kids Yenuli, Senut and Dinut. And also two sisters and my relatives, they have been always with me for the last 48 years. So they were the strength to me, right? So I appreciate their help. And also I would like to acknowledge the teachers who taught me from grade 1 to 13. I studied my primary education in Smalabe Rahula Vidyalaya. Now it became a girls' school, but at that time it was a mixed school. And then I got through in this grade 5 scholarship and went to Ananda College. And then completed my studies at Ananda, and then came to Moratuwa and did 4 years at Moratuwa, and then masters at AIT and PhD at UPAM. I must thank all these teachers. So they gave me this courage and the confidence. And also I would like to thank my supervisors, Professor Atula Kulatilaka at Moratuwa University, who was my first supervisor in the undergraduate research final year project, and Professor Bala, A.S. Balasubramaniam from AIT, and then Professor Jiro Takemura from AIT, and late Professor Goro Imai. So he was my PhD professor and I was his last PhD student. And Professor George Hornberger from Vanderbilt University, and then distinguished Professor Buddhima Indratna from Wollongong University. I appreciate all their help during my studies. And then my research students at Ruhuna, I was at Ruhuna for 7 years before I joined in Moratuwa. So I had several research students. And also the students from Moratuwa and also my research partners ADPC and NBRO, and also the friends at my soil lab at Moratuwa. They were always helping me in my endeavors, right? And also I would like to thank the World Bank for funding this one, NBRO and ADPC for helping me in this project, and also ISL / Sri Lanka Geotechnical Society. Everyone is acknowledged here. And finally, I would like to thank my friends in my Moratuwa civil engineering batch. I know they are listening here, and also friends from Ananda College. They are also here. I know some of them. I saw them. Right? Thank you, friends, and of course the friends from Malawi, my hometown, my friends from my childhood. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes today's and the first inaugural lecture presentation. And now we have a task at FGS. This is a monthly event. So every month on a third week, Thursday, or the fourth week, we will have this evening session, 1 hour, on this sharing of or introducing our professors to the public and looking at what we are doing and what we are capable of doing from University of Moratuwa. Thank you.